Welcome to Just the Two. Today is part 5 of our story, and it's all about our engagement. So let's go.
Thanks for watching. Make sure to subscribe and check out our other YouTube channel for new videos coming out every day. Go to 2inazoo.com and hit subscribe while you're there. Here we go.
So, our engagement is probably the longest section of the story. We were actually engaged longer than the section of the story where we were dating, because we knew pretty quickly that we wanted to be married, and then we started setting dates, started trying to find dates, and initially we were thinking like April of the following year, which would have given us more of an 8-month engagement. But there were numerous things that happened that made us want to push the date back. My sister was pregnant with her third child with Katie. Some of you know Katie actually from some of our old Memory Lane Monday videos over on our 2 in a Zoo channel. Katie was born in April. And here's the thing. My sister was one of the bridesmaids. She was actually
My matron of honor.
Matron of honor, exactly. And there's a story there about how we chose those. That's probably what we'll get into next time. But we wanted Barb to be able to do it and fit in the dress and choose the dress she wanted and really enjoy it. You know, if we had done some kind of April wedding, it would have been the first week of April. She would have been 36 weeks pregnant, 37 weeks pregnant. She would have probably done it, and been a trooper, but she would have been uncomfortable and ready to have her baby, and so we pushed back to I think at one point we were talking about the following November. We threw around the November date, and then we moved it back to August eventually. We landed on August 5th, so we were married on August 5th. And as we began to plan, as you know, there's just tons of things you begin to have conversations about that you never had conversations about when you were just courting. You're getting down into the nitty-gritty of choosing dates and colors, motifs, locations, venues, the wedding party, the minister. And so the first thing out of many things we want to tell you about today, we're going to tell you about 3 things. The first is our minister that we chose. Melanie's father is a pastor. And one of the initial conversations we had was, well, is your dad going to marry us? I think we had actually never even talked about that when we were courting. We never really thought about it too much. And
basically, Dad and I had a conversation when I was like 15.
Yeah, they knew. I had no idea. And then we started talking about it, and Melanie and her father agreed that on that day, he just wants to be a daddy. He doesn't want to have to do double duty, walk her down the aisle, and marry her. And some people do that, and that's completely cool. Mm-hmm. But for them, they decided that before I was even in the picture, kind of knew that he didn't want to do that. So Melanie and I were left to try and choose a minister, and there were good options around us. There was the pastor from the church that I had attended, but she didn't really know him. Yeah. She didn't know him, so there wouldn't have been a connection there with her as much as there would have been with me. There was another pastor at the church that we could have had, or 2 more pastors at the church. Wait, was there 3? 2. There were 2. 2 at the church that we could have chosen. But when it came down to it, there was actually one man that stood out to us both. And the more we talked about having him marry us, the more we were like, yeah, that actually would be pretty cool. And he was a retired pastor, right? And he had pastored for, decades, right? Yeah. I don't know the exact number. And he is a very godly man with a very godly wife, and they were elderly, and we really looked up to them. We started to say, the decision just about who's going to marry you, who's going to do the service, it can kind of be one of those things that for some couples that decision is already made. It's the pastor at the church that you already attend if you attend a church. For us, since we had options, we started to say, well, now that we have options and there's an actual decision to be made, what would we want? And it totally made sense to us that we would choose a pastor who is in a long relationship, who has been married many years, who has the kind of relationship with his wife that we would hope we would look like when we get to their age. And for us, that would be Bob and Norma Weiss. They attended the church that we were attending when we were dating and courting and then engaged. Through that whole season, we attended the same church where her father was pastoring, and we always looked up to them. They were always so kind to us. We always thought they were so cute, and we loved their spirit. Just something about them, it was just wonderful. So we asked him, and I don't think he expected it at all, because he had to say, well, let me think about this. I am actually shocked you're asking me. I think he maybe assumed Jeff would do it. I don't know what he assumed, but I don't think
the other pastors.
I don't think he thought that he was on our radar, and he certainly was. But he absolutely agreed to it, and he, like many pastors, he counseled us before we got married, and we went through some premarital books of our own, and we went through one with him, and we just think that premarital counseling is so important. As a pastor, with people I marry, I walk through many weeks of premarital counseling, 6 to 8 weeks, and if I was a full-time pastor, it might be longer than that, quite honestly, maybe every other week through the entire engagement, because there's so much that happens. There are so many pitfalls you can stumble into that you need a pastor guiding you through that time. And he did well at guiding us through that time and keeping us thinking about what was coming, the commitment that was coming on our wedding day, and thinking about all the angles on what marriage would look like, all the things that if we didn't talk about in engagement, if we didn't discover them until marriage, they could cause fights or disagreement or issues. So he was great, and I don't think we would change it at all. We love having him in our wedding video, him being there and hearing his voice, and he did a great job. I love the things he said. He just had that long-term view on marriage that only comes with time. And so the things he said when he was doing the officiating they were just beautiful. He did a great job. So that's how we chose the minister who would marry us. And Melanie's going to talk about the venue. How do we choose a venue? Like, that's one of the first things you start talking about, is like, where are we going to do this? A date, and where?
I don't think we had a where for a while.
No, we didn't.
I think we had more of like a guideline of who we wanted where, like who we wanted in the ceremony, more than where we were going to do it.
Yeah, it was probably easier for us to figure out, my groomsmen and your bridesmaids than it was to figure out where are we going to do this.
Right.
We knew we wanted to be married in the church.
Mm-hmm.
We wanted our ceremony at Faith
church.
Baptist Church, where we were attending.
Right.
Which is now Faith Community Church, I think.
I don't
these days.
remember. Yeah, I guess.
Still same location, but different name. So we started thinking, like, okay, so where's the reception going to be? Is it going to be in the gymnasium at the church? That's an option.
Being a pastor's kid, there was a lot of people that wanted to go, and then I wanted a more intimate reception later. So we had a gymnasium reception, and then we had a more intimate reception at a second location. So basically, Daddy and I loved Father of the Bride. So it's just our movie. I watched it the night before we got married, and cried my eyes out. I'm very much a daddy's girl. So anyway, I don't know if you know this, but the tent scene in their backyard, that was kind of my
Dream.
idea of a reception. I did not realize the logistics of it would have been way too complicated. Because we would have had to have one reception at the gymnasium and then set up again the tent later, and that was just way too much mess for the same day.
Or rent 2 tents, which is
just didn't sound
very
that
expensive.
was ridiculous too. So anyway, that option really didn't happen. So we had looked at hotels, and we had Mom and I had kind of well, what about Disney? And Disney was way too much money.
A convention center at Disney is what we're talking about here. Because what they'll do is they take their convention centers and they section them off. If you want a 5,000 square foot room, a 3,000 square foot room. Like, we've been to weddings at Disney where there's a light reception in the 3,000 square foot room and the full reception in a 10,000 square foot room or something crazy.
It's ridiculous.
These
it
ballrooms.
Way out of hand.
Yeah.
Way out of hand.
And then you go to any hotel in Orlando, many of them like the Wyndham, the Radisson, all these Hiltons and stuff, they all have their own convention centers, ballrooms, and they all charge different rates. And when you go there, they have prices for everything that they break down, food and price per head and offerings of steak or fish or chicken. And oh my goodness, it's crazy to try and choose a venue when you start to look at hotels.
Right. So we had looked at hotels. We had looked at the Gaylord Palms, and basically their ballrooms are really, really tiny. For the price, you don't get a lot. And I didn't really like the colors either. Our color scheme would have actually clashed with their rooms, so we really nixed that really fast.
The Gaylord Palms is really pretty inside.
It is. It just doesn't clash.
It didn't work.
It didn't work.
Yeah.
Their room was very weirdly shaped. We wouldn't have been able to get so many tables in. So we had talked about the Grand Cypress. We had talked about there was another hotel. Oh, the Wyndham. We had talked about the Wyndham.
Yeah. I feel like you guys talked about.
We had talked about the Wyndham, but I
hotel.
had gone to a bridal show at the Wyndham, and there was just something about the Wyndham that I didn't really like, and I don't remember what it was.
The location's not fantastic.
That's it. The location. The location is awful. You're right in the middle of tourist area, and there's very little parking, and you're not. It wasn't like it was a place where you felt like you were going to be at a wedding. You felt like you were going to be at a tourist trap. So that was we nixed that out real fast.
It's near this road in Orlando. I won't name the road, but that one road, has restaurants, shopping centers, T-shirt shops. I mean, it's water parks, yeah, or at least used to be water parks. Everything is on that road, and it's just and hotels, the convention center, all that area is so densely compacted with tourists and locals coming to these venues too. But it's just so busy. It didn't feel like a.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a wedding.
It just wasn't what we wanted.
Right.
I'm sure some people enjoy it, and they wouldn't take it back. It's their first choice, but for us, we were just looking for something a little more laid back, just slightly less. Maybe a little less,
like a little more exclusive to. That felt like a wedding and not so much like you're in a theme park area.
When we had our guests show up to our reception, we didn't want them to be trying to funnel between 50,000 other people who were there for other reasons.
Right.
And the place we ended up choosing was just that. It was
ironically across from a theme
park.
But it didn't feel like that.
No.
You know, so we picked I'm blanking. The Renaissance. Sorry. So we picked the Renaissance at SeaWorld. They have I don't know if they have still, but they had a water feature that was like you walked in and the sounds were really romantic. And so we went in, and then there's a ballroom, the Crystal Ballroom, I think is what it's called, or the Blue Ballroom. I don't remember. But basically that room looked exactly like our color scheme.
The walls were literally the exact color of periwinkle that we had chosen. That she had chosen. Who am I kidding? That she had chosen.
You chose the guy's colors.
I said, yeah, I'll go with that. but you had chosen the colors.
Yeah.
She knew her. Actually, you were down to like a very light purple.
Or a maroon.
Which I had thought about. Or a maroon, or like the periwinkle blue. Mm-hmm. And I liked the blue because I thought, okay, I can find something my guys can wear that would match and all that. So, but yeah, we walked in that ballroom. Everything, it was like periwinkle. It was everywhere.
Really pretty. And the chandeliers were amazing, and
yeah.
So it felt like a wedding. It felt like
our wedding.
Yeah, no, it just felt like a wedding. Like a wedding should be like a wedding reception should be there.
It was truly made for weddings.
Yeah, because the other ones didn't feel like that. They felt more like stark. They felt
you could have anything in that room, right? I know what you mean.
So we chose there. It was a long process of figuring out, are we going to do, what kind of desserts are we going to do? Are we going to do, one of the things that we did, that Mike had asked for, we didn't do open bar or anything, but basically the open bar was a part of our package. And so because we didn't want a bar, we did a chocolate fountain. And so that's what Mike had asked for. And
they were like, do you want a groom's cake? And I'm like,
that's lame.
I don't eat cake that much. That's cool. A lot of weddings do that. I think that it was something like whoever was doing our cake asked us. Mm-hmm. You know, everyone does groom cakes these days. Do you want a groom cake? And I was like, not really. At some point, I feel like she had told me, well, we have the open bar, and because we're not going to use the open bar, they'll do something else. And I was like, can they do a chocolate fountain? Because that sounds like it has me written all over it. And they gladly did it because for the hotel, a chocolate fountain is way cheaper than an open bar. Right? So it was a good chocolate fountain. It had everything you could imagine. And And I think our guests really enjoyed it.
They really did. They really liked it.
So you're welcome, everyone who came to our wedding. So yeah. So is there anything else about the venue we could share? I mean, the one cool thing we could mention is that included in the package was the honeymoon suite for the night. So when our wedding was over, we just took the elevator upstairs to our room. It was like it was so nice to not have to drive off or anything. It was pretty cool to stay there, and then from there we left for our honeymoon immediately. Our family didn't see us again. We were gone. We even left my suit and her dress like at the receptionist desk at the hotel, right? And her parents had to come back to the hotel later that day. I mean, when we went up to our room, people didn't see us for a week and a half because we were gone. So it was really cool. Awesome night. And then the third thing we want to tell you about today is our engagement photos. After we got engaged and we started saying, okay, what are all the things we got to work on here? One of the things you naturally talk about is photos, because you're going to need photos of the wedding. And out of everything from that day, the one thing you take with you is photos. So if there's any one thing you should spend money on and have done right, it's the photos. It really is. It's not the cake. It's not the food. It's not the music or the DJ or whatever. It's not even the dress. The one thing, other than the rings on your finger, I guess, is those photos. So we knew we wanted to have Bruce Wilson do it because he had done
all my photos,
all her photos from forever. He had done like all my senior pictures, and anything I had ever had was done by him. Actually, Bruce Wilson, your father, did my preschool photos. So I mean, gosh. Bruce Wilson has been the photographer photographing me, and senior has been photographing both our families from the time we were little kids, like 4 years old. I think was the first one that Bruce Wilson senior photoed me, like during my school pictures at the First United Methodist in downtown Kissimmee. I won't say that. So we knew we wanted Bruce to do it, and I think your mom immediately started talking to him about a package that would include the wedding plus engagement or something like that. So we chose, out of all places we could choose, we chose to have our engagement photos at the same place where we got engaged. That little place that we showed you photos of that night where I took her to see the fireworks. Well, in the daytime, and back then, not anymore. Back then, there are white sandy beaches. There were white sandy beaches, and we could get that Hawaii feel without having to go to Hawaii for our photos. And there were like hammocks and all sorts of pretty things around. So we chose that location. We just thought that would really be beautiful, and we were already planning that when we had a home of our own or an apartment, whenever we lived together after we were married finally, that our bedroom would be Hawaii themed. We loved the tropical theme back then. And we don't still like that in our bedroom. We like it in our vacationing, but not in our bedroom. So it made sense to have like a tropical theme engagement photo. And the thing is, we weren't in tropical clothing. We were just in a white shirt, and she had a white blouse, and we both had jeans on. And we were in a kind of a sandy, beachy, palm tree setting. And we chose that, we set the date, we went out, and it was freezing cold that morning. We got there before sunrise. Bruce wanted to get there when the sun comes up. It perfectly distills light, so you can get beautiful photos without harsh shadow.
Right.
And he could just get the lighting that he wanted, and it really paid off because the photos came out great. So here's how we're going to close today's video. We're going to show you those photos. And here's a little slideshow of us as a crazy young couple in love, newly engaged, and awaiting their wedding day. We hope you enjoyed this video. Give it a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and share, and enjoy this slideshow.